The rain felt like tiny needles against my skin as I stood at the bus stop, watching the red taillights of the Bentley disappear into the night. My hands were shaking, not from the cold, but from the shock of what just happened. 20 minutes ago, I was sitting in luxury leather seats next to my husband of 5 years. Now I was standing on a random street corner with nothing but the designer dress on my back. No phone, no wallet, no dignity. "Do whatever you want, Natasha," Brandon had said, his voice cold as ice. "I'm done pretending." The fight started over something small. I asked him why he came home at 3 in the morning. Again. He got defensive. I pushed harder. Then he said the words that shattered my world into a million pieces. "I've been seeing Rochelle for 8 months. And honestly, she makes me happier than you ever did." Rochelle. My former college roommate. The woman who stayed at our house last Christmas. The woman who cried on my shoulder when her last relationship ended. That Rochelle. I screamed. I cried. I called him every name I could think of. He just stared straight ahead, gripping the steering wheel, his jaw tight. When we reached a red light in a neighborhood I didn't recognize, he reached across me and opened my door. "Get out," he said simply. "Brandon, please. We're in the middle of nowhere. I don't have my phone or money or—" I said, "Get out. Figure it out like an adult. You're always talking about how independent you are. Prove it." His hand went to my back and he pushed. Not hard enough to hurt, but firm enough to make his point clear. I stumbled out of the car and before I could turn around he pulled away. That's when the rain started. I stood there for what felt like hours but was probably only 10 minutes trying to process everything. Cars drove past, splashing water from puddles onto my already soaked clothes. Nobody stopped. Nobody cared. I was invisible. The bus stop shelter offered little protection from the rain. I sat on the cold metal bench and wrapped my arms around myself. My makeup was running down my face. My hair, which I had spent an hour straightening that morning, was plastered to my head. I looked down at my shaking hands and realized I was still wearing my wedding ring. The 3-carat diamond caught the streetlight and sparkled mockingly. 5 years. 5 years of being the perfect wife. I gave up my job at the marketing firm to support his business dreams. I hosted dinner parties for his investors. I smiled pretty at his company events. I convinced my own mother to invest her retirement savings into his company. And this is what I got in return. I was so lost in my thoughts that I didn't hear the footsteps approaching until a soft voice spoke beside me. "Terrible night to be stranded, isn't it, dear?" I looked up to see an elderly woman standing in front of me. She was small, maybe 5 feet tall, with white hair pulled back in an elegant bun. She wore a long coat and carried a white cane. Her eyes had a cloudy look to them. She was blind or close to it. "I'm fine," I said automatically, wiping my face even though she couldn't see me crying. "No, you're not," she said gently. "I can hear it in your voice. Man trouble?" I let out a bitter laugh. "You could say that. Left you here with nothing, did he? How did you?" "I've been around for 83 years, sweetheart. I've seen it all, even if I can't see it anymore." She smiled kindly. "My name is Eleanor Wellington. What's yours?" "Natasha," I whispered. "Well, Natasha, I have a proposition for you. My driver is coming to pick me up in about 5 minutes. When he arrives, I want you to act like you're my granddaughter. Can you do that?" I stared at her, confused. "Why would I do that?" "Because right now you need help and I'm offering it. But my driver is overprotective. He won't let a stranger in the car. So you'll be my granddaughter visiting from out of town. You got caught in the rain walking around the neighborhood. Simple story. I don't understand. Why would you help me? You don't even know me." Mrs. Wellington reached out with one hand and I instinctively took it. Her grip was surprisingly strong. "Let's just say I know what it's like to be underestimated and thrown away by a man who thinks he's more important than he is. And right now, looking at you, well, not looking exactly, but you know what I mean, I see someone who deserves better than a bus stop in the rain. But I can't just. Do you have anywhere else to go? Anyone else to call?" I opened my mouth to say yes, but the truth stopped me. Brandon and I had moved to this city for his business 3 years ago. I lost touch with most of my old friends. The ones I had here were mostly his business associates' wives, and they would definitely take his side. My mother lived 2 states away and I didn't have my phone to call her anyway. I had no money for a cab, a hotel, or even a phone call. "No," I finally admitted. "I don't." "Then what do you have to lose? Let me help you tonight. Tomorrow you can decide what to do next. But right now, get out of this rain before you catch pneumonia." Before I could answer, headlights appeared down the street. A sleek black car pulled up to the curb and a man in a suit got out, holding a large umbrella. He looked like he was in his 40s, professional and serious. "Mrs. Wellington," he said, rushing over to cover her with the umbrella. "I'm so sorry I'm late. The meeting ran longer than expected." "It's quite all right, Thomas. Look who I found. My granddaughter Natasha is visiting. She was out exploring the neighborhood and got caught in the rain. Poor thing." Thomas looked at me, his eyes scanning my face suspiciously. I held my breath, sure he would see right through the lie. But Mrs. Wellington reached out and found my hand again, squeezing it in a way that said, "Play along." "Hello," I said, my voice shaking slightly. "Nice to meet you." Thomas's expression softened just a bit. "Ma'am," he nodded. "Let's get you both out of this weather." He helped Mrs. Wellington into the back seat, then opened the door for me. I hesitated for just a second, looking back at the empty bus stop. I could stay here and figure something out on my own. I could prove to Brandon that I didn't need anyone. But I was cold, wet, hurt, and angry. And this strange woman was offering me a lifeline. I got in the car. The interior was even more luxurious than Brandon's Bentley. Soft leather seats, climate control that immediately started drying my clothes, and a privacy screen between us and Thomas in the front. Mrs. Wellington settled back into her seat with a satisfied smile. "There now. Much better, isn't it? Where are we going?" I asked quietly. "Home, dear. My home. You'll stay the night, get dry, get some food in you, and get some rest. Tomorrow we'll talk about what comes next. I can't just stay at a stranger's house. You don't know anything about me. I could be a dangerous criminal?" Mrs. Wellington laughed. "Sweetheart, I may be blind, but I'm not stupid. I know exactly who you are." My blood ran cold. "What?" "We'll talk more when we get home. For now, just relax. You've been through enough tonight." I wanted to demand answers, to jump out of the car at the next red light, but exhaustion was setting in. The adrenaline from the fight with Brandon was wearing off, leaving me hollow and tired. I leaned my head against the cool window and watched the city lights blur past. Who was this woman? How did she know who I was? What did she want from me? But most importantly, why did I feel like my life was about to change in ways I couldn't even imagine? The drive took about 30 minutes, leading us away from the city and into an area I'd never been before. The neighborhood changed gradually, from busy streets to quiet suburbs, then to roads lined with tall trees and massive gates. Thomas turned onto a private drive and my jaw actually dropped. The Wellington estate was not just a house. It was a mansion that looked like something from a movie. 3 stories of white stone with tall windows that glowed from inside. Manicured gardens stretched out on both sides, and a fountain sat in the circular driveway, lit up with soft blue lights. Even in the rain it was beautiful. "Welcome home," Mrs. Wellington said as Thomas parked by the front entrance. A woman in a neat uniform appeared with umbrellas, helping us from the car to the massive front doors. Inside, the foyer was bigger than the entire first floor of the house I grew up in. A crystal chandelier hung from the high ceiling, marble floors gleamed under my wet shoes, and a curved staircase led to the upper floors. "Martha, this is my granddaughter Natasha," Mrs. Wellington said to the uniformed woman. "She'll be staying with us. Please prepare the blue guest room and have some dinner sent up. She's had a difficult evening." "Of course, Mrs. Wellington," Martha said, though I caught her giving me the same suspicious look Thomas had at the bus stop. "Come, dear. Let's get you out of those wet clothes." Mrs. Wellington held out her arm and I took it, letting her lean on me as we walked. For a blind woman, she moved through her house with complete confidence, knowing exactly where every piece of furniture sat. We went up the staircase and down a long hallway lined with paintings. She stopped at a door and pushed it open, revealing a bedroom that took my breath away. The room was painted a soft blue color, with a huge bed covered in white linens, a sitting area with a couch and chairs, and French doors that led to a balcony. A fireplace sat against one wall, already lit and crackling. "The bathroom is through that door. You'll find everything you need. Martha will bring some clothes for you. You look about the same size as my niece. Take a hot shower, get into something dry, and then we'll have dinner and talk." "Mrs. Wellington, I don't understand any of this. Why are you being so kind to me?" She turned her cloudy eyes in my direction and smiled. "Because I can be. Because I choose to be. And because Natasha Harris, married to Brandon Harris, former marketing executive at Coleman & Associates, I know exactly who you are and what happened to you tonight." I felt my knees go weak. "How? How do you know all that?" "Shower first. Then we talk. You'll understand everything soon, I promise." She left, closing the door gently behind her. I stood there for a long moment, trying to process everything. This didn't make sense. Nothing about this made sense. But the hot shower was calling to me and I was too tired to run. The bathroom was like a spa. I stood under the hot water for 20 minutes, letting it wash away the rain, the tears, and the feeling of Brandon's hand pushing me out of the car. By the time I got out, Martha had left a set of clothes on the bed, soft pants and a cashmere sweater that fit perfectly. She'd also left a tray with tea and small sandwiches. I ate quickly, realizing I hadn't had dinner. Brandon and I were supposed to go to a restaurant, which is why I'd gotten dressed up. That felt like a lifetime ago now. A knock on the door made me jump. "Come in," I called. Mrs. Wellington entered, now wearing a comfortable robe. She walked to the sitting area and settled into one of the chairs like she could see it perfectly. "Feeling better?" she asked. "Yes, thank you. For everything. But I really need to understand what's happening here. How do you know who I am?" "Sit down, dear. This might take a few minutes." I sat on the couch across from her, my hands gripping the cushion nervously. "About 6 months ago, your husband's company, Harris Investments, approached my company about a potential acquisition. They wanted to buy Wellington Industries. I own one of the largest real estate development firms in the state, and Brandon thought it would be a good addition to his portfolio." I felt sick. Brandon never told me about any of this. "I don't make business decisions lightly," Mrs. Wellington continued. "So I had my team investigate Brandon and his company thoroughly. What we found was interesting. On paper, everything looked good. But when we dug deeper, we found some questionable practices. Money moving in strange ways. Investors being promised things that weren't quite legal. Nothing we could prove in court, but enough to make me say no to the deal." "But what does that have to do with me?" "During the investigation, we looked into Brandon's personal life too. That's when we found out about his affair with Rochelle Davis. My team has been tracking them for about 3 months. Meeting at hotels, having lunch together, taking trips that Brandon told you were business-related." I felt tears burning in my eyes again. 3 months. They knew for 3 months, which meant it had been going on even longer. "I also learned about you," Mrs. Wellington said, her voice gentler now. "Natasha Harris. 29 years old. Used to work in marketing until you quit to support your husband's business. No children. Your mother, Patricia, lives in Ohio. You convinced her to invest $50,000 into Brandon's company 2 years ago. How do you know all this?" I whispered. "Because I'm good at my job and I have the resources to find out anything I need to know. But here's what really caught my attention, Natasha. Every single person I spoke to who knew you both said the same thing. You were the smart one. You were the one with the real business sense. Brandon just had the confidence and the family money to start a company. That's not true. Brandon built his business from a $2 million loan from his father, which he's never paid back." "Yes, I know. But the early success of Harris Investments came from strategies you developed. I spoke to people at Coleman and Associates. They said you were brilliant. They were shocked when you quit." I didn't know what to say. I'd always told myself that I left my job to support Brandon, that it was a choice. But deep down I knew the truth. He made me feel like my career was competing with his, like I had to choose. "So tonight," Mrs. Wellington continued, "when I was at that bus stop, and yes, I was really waiting for Thomas. I go to business meetings all the time, and I heard a woman crying. I asked Thomas to tell me what he saw. He described you. Designer dress, wedding ring, expensive shoes, but clearly distressed. I put 2 and 2 together. I've been in this business long enough to know what a man throwing away his wife looks like. Why didn't you just tell me this at the bus stop? Would you have believed me? Or would you have thought I was crazy?" She had a point. "So what happens now? Why did you bring me here?" Mrs. Wellington leaned forward, and even though she couldn't see me clearly, I felt like she was looking straight into my soul. "Now, Natasha, I'm going to offer you a choice. You can leave tomorrow morning. I'll have Thomas take you anywhere you want to go. I'll even give you some money to help you get started. No strings attached. You can go back to your old life, try to rebuild, maybe call your mother. Or," I asked because there was clearly an or coming. "Or you can stay here. Work for me. Learn my business. I'll pay you a real salary. I'll give you a place to live. And in 6 months, when I officially reject Brandon's acquisition offer and he starts scrambling to figure out why, you'll be the one helping me make that decision. You want me to work for you to get revenge on my husband? No. I want you to work for me because you're smart, talented, and wasted on a man who doesn't appreciate you. The fact that it will also bother Brandon is just a bonus." I sat back, my mind racing. This was insane. I should leave. I should go to a hotel, call my mother, figure out my own path forward. I shouldn't let this stranger, no matter how kind, dictate my next move. But then I thought about Brandon's face when he told me to get out. I thought about Rochelle probably in my house right now, sleeping in my bed. I thought about all the years I spent making myself smaller so he could feel bigger. What exactly would I be doing? I asked slowly. Mrs. Wellington smiled. Everything. I'll teach you how Wellington Industries really works. You'll sit in on meetings. Learn about real estate development, property management, investment strategies. I'm 83 years old, Natasha. I don't plan to retire tomorrow, but I do need to start thinking about the future of my company. My son died 10 years ago. My granddaughter is a doctor and has no interest in business. I need someone smart, hungry, and ready to learn. But I don't know anything about real estate or... You'll learn. You're smart enough. And more importantly, you're motivated. A person who's been knocked down and wants to get back up is the most powerful kind of person there is. I looked around the beautiful room, then back at this strange, wonderful woman who had appeared in my life at exactly the right moment. I need to think about it, I said. Of course. Sleep on it. Tomorrow morning you can give me your answer. But Natasha, let me tell you something I learned a long time ago. The best revenge isn't getting back at someone who hurt you. The best revenge is becoming so successful that they become completely irrelevant to your life. She stood up, finding her way to the door with ease. Get some rest. Tomorrow is a new day. After she left, I walked to the balcony doors and looked out at the estate. The rain had stopped and the moon was peeking through the clouds. Somewhere out there, Brandon was probably with Rochelle, not giving me a second thought. But here, in this place, I had a chance to become something different. Something more. I touched my wedding ring, then slowly pulled it off my finger. It felt strange after 5 years of never taking it off. I set it on the bedside table and climbed into the most comfortable bed I'd ever felt. As I drifted off to sleep, I realized I'd already made my decision. Tomorrow, I was going to become someone Brandon would regret throwing away. I woke up to sunlight streaming through the windows and for a moment forgot where I was. Then it all came rushing back. Brandon, Rochelle, the bus stop, Mrs. Wellington. I sat up and looked around the beautiful blue room, half expecting it to have been a dream. A knock on the door answered that question. Come in, I called. Martha entered with a tray containing coffee, fruit, and pastries. Good morning, Mrs. Harris. Mrs. Wellington asks if you'll join her for breakfast in the sunroom in 30 minutes. Yes, of course. And Martha, please call me Natasha. She gave me a slight smile. As you wish. There are clothes in the closet that should fit you. Mrs. Wellington had me bring several options. After Martha left, I got up and opened the closet. It was full of beautiful, professional clothes, pants, suits, dresses, blouses. All in my size. Mrs. Wellington had definitely been prepared for me to say yes. I chose a simple pair of black pants and a cream-colored blouse, then went to the bathroom to get ready. Looking in the mirror, I almost didn't recognize myself. Without makeup, with my hair natural, I looked younger, softer. More like the person I used to be before Brandon. 30 minutes later, Martha led me through the house to a bright room with windows on 3 sides. Mrs. Wellington sat at a small table, already eating breakfast. She looked up when I entered, even though she couldn't really see me. Good morning, Natasha. Did you sleep well? Yes, actually. Better than I have in months. Good. Sit. Then we'll talk. I sat down and poured myself coffee. The fruit was fresh, the pastries were still hot from the oven. It was the kind of breakfast I used to make for Brandon on special occasions, though he rarely appreciated it. Have you made your decision? Mrs. Wellington asked after a few minutes. I set down my coffee cup and took a deep breath. I want to say yes. I want to take your offer. But I need to understand something first. Why me? You could hire anyone. People with degrees, experience, connections. Why offer this to a random woman you found at a bus stop? Mrs. Wellington wiped her mouth with a napkin and leaned back in her chair. That's a fair question. Let me tell you a story. She paused and I waited. 50 years ago I was you. Well, not exactly you, but close enough. I was married to a man named Robert Wellington. He came from old money, a powerful family. I was from a poor neighborhood, working as a secretary at his father's company. Robert saw me, decided he wanted me, and we got married when I was 23. What happened? For the first few years everything was fine. Then Robert's father died and left him Wellington Industries. Suddenly, my husband was powerful, important. And I was just the poor girl he married. He started having affairs. Flaunting them, really. Everyone knew except me. Or at least, I pretended not to know because I didn't know what else to do. I felt a chill run through me. This was my story. One night, after a company party, Robert told me he wanted a divorce. He was going to marry his secretary, Ironic, isn't it? He offered me a small settlement and told me to disappear quietly. He said if I fought him, he'd make sure I got nothing. What did you do? Mrs. Wellington smiled. I went to see a lawyer the next day. A good one. And I learned something interesting. Robert's father hadn't just left him the company. He'd left it to both of us. Equal partners. But Robert had been hiding the papers from me, making me sign things without reading them carefully, slowly trying to push me out. So you fought him? I did more than fight him. I learned the business inside and out. I discovered that Robert was terrible at running the company. He was making bad deals, losing money, using company funds for personal expenses. So I built a case, took it to the board of directors, and had him removed. My eyes went wide. You took the company from him? I took back what was half mine to begin with. Robert didn't build Wellington Industries. His father did. And I helped that father for 10 years before he died. I earned my place. What happened to Robert? He remarried his secretary just like he planned. They lived off his trust fund for a while. But the secretary eventually left him for someone richer. Robert died 15 years ago. Alone, bitter, and broke. Mrs. Wellington reached across the table and found my hand. I tell you this story because I see myself in you, Natasha. You gave up your career for a man who didn't deserve it. You made yourself small so he could feel big. But you're smart. Talented. You just need someone to give you a chance to prove it. Tears filled my eyes. I don't know if I can do this. Yes, you can. You're already stronger than you think. You could have stayed at that bus stop feeling sorry for yourself. You could have called someone to rescue you. But instead, you got in a car with a strange old lady because you knew, somewhere deep inside, that you deserved better. She was right. I did know that. Okay, I said, my voice shaking a little. I'll do it. I'll work for you. I'll learn everything you can teach me. Mrs. Wellington's smile grew. Good. Then let's start now. First lesson, never make a decision based on emotion. Make it based on logic and what benefits you most. You're not taking this job to get revenge on Brandon. You're taking it because it's the best option for your future. What about Brandon? Won't he find out I'm working for you? Eventually, yes. But by then you'll be in a position where it doesn't matter. Right now he thinks you're broken, desperate, and crawling back to him any day. Let him think that for as long as possible. Should I contact him? Tell him where I am? No. Let him wonder. Let him worry. Besides, you don't owe him anything. He threw you out of his car and left you in the rain. He doesn't deserve an explanation. She was right about that too. What about legally? We're still married. Don't I need to do something about that? Eventually you'll file for divorce. But not yet. First, we need to make sure you're protected financially. I'm going to have my lawyers look into your marriage, your assets, everything. We need to know exactly what you're entitled to before you make any moves. The thought of lawyers and divorce papers made my stomach hurt, but I knew it was necessary. Now let's talk about your new role. You'll start as my personal assistant. That sounds simple, but it's not. You'll shadow me in every meeting, learn every aspect of Wellington Industries. I'll pay you $60,000 a year to start, with bonuses based on performance. You'll live here in this house until you're ready to get your own place. All meals provided. Use of the car service when needed. $60,000. That was more than I'd made at my old job. More than I'd earned in the 5 years since I quit. That's too generous, I said. It's exactly what you're worth. Maybe even less, but we'll see how you do. Now, do you have any questions? I had about 1 million questions. What do I tell people? If anyone asks where I am or what I'm doing, you tell them the truth. You're working for Wellington Industries. If they ask how you got the job, you say Mrs. Wellington offered it to you. You don't owe anyone an explanation beyond that. What about Brandon? When he realizes I'm working for you, he'll know you rejected his acquisition offer because of me. So, let him think that. Let him realize that the wife he threw away is now the reason he can't have what he wants. That's called consequences, dear. We spent the next hour going over details. Mrs. Wellington explained her schedule, her expectations, and the structure of Wellington Industries. The company owned commercial properties all over the state, managed residential developments, and invested in new construction projects. It was worth hundreds of millions of dollars. I have a meeting this afternoon with a potential investor, Mrs. Wellington said as we finished breakfast. You'll come with me. Watch, listen, learn. Don't speak unless spoken to. Just observe. I don't have anything professional to wear. Just what I had on last night, and it's ruined. Already handled. There's a whole wardrobe being delivered this morning. Martha will help you pick something appropriate. Of course there was. The rest of the morning passed in a blur. Martha helped me choose a navy blue suit for the afternoon meeting. A woman named Patricia arrived and explained that she was Mrs. Wellington's executive assistant and would be training me on the day-to-day operations. Another woman, Sophie, was the head of the legal department and spent an hour explaining the basics of the business. Everyone was professional and kind, but I could tell they were curious about me. Who was this random woman who suddenly showed up and got a job with Mrs. Wellington? At 2 o'clock, Thomas drove us to Wellington Industries headquarters in downtown. The building was 40 stories tall, all glass and steel, impressive and modern. Mrs. Wellington's office was on the top floor with views of the entire city. The meeting was with a developer who wanted Wellington Industries to invest in a new shopping center project. He came in confident, probably expecting an easy sell. But Mrs. Wellington asked question after question, poking holes in his business plan, pointing out risks he hadn't considered. By the end of the meeting, he was scrambling to answer her concerns. After he left, Mrs. Wellington turned to me. "What did you think?" "I think he wasn't nearly as prepared as he thought he was." "Exactly. That's the first rule of business, Natasha. Never assume the other person is stupid. Always be more prepared than they are." As we drove home that evening, I looked out the window at the city passing by. 24 hours ago, I was standing at a bus stop with nothing. Now I was riding in a luxury car, working for one of the most powerful women in the state, starting a new life. My phone buzzed in my purse. Wait, I didn't have my phone. Then I realized Mrs. Wellington must have had someone retrieve it, along with some of my other things from the house. I pulled it out and saw 17 missed calls from Brandon. 12 text messages. "Where are you? Natasha, come home. This is ridiculous. I'm sorry, okay? Just come home and we'll talk. You're being childish. Fine. Stay out all night. See if I care." Then this morning, "Natasha, please. I'm worried. Where are you?" I stared at the messages, feeling nothing. No anger, no sadness, not even satisfaction. Just emptiness where my feelings for Brandon used to be. "He's calling," Mrs. Wellington said, even though I hadn't said anything. "How did you know?" "Because men like him always do. The moment they realize they can't control you anymore, they panic." "Are you going to answer?" I looked at the phone, at Brandon's name flashing on the screen. Then I turned it off completely and put it back in my purse. "No," I said. "I'm not." Mrs. Wellington patted my hand. "Good girl. Now let's go home and prepare for tomorrow. We have a lot of work to do." 3 weeks passed in a blur of meetings, spreadsheets, and late-night study sessions. Mrs. Wellington wasn't kidding when she said she'd teach me everything. I attended board meetings, sat in on conference calls with investors, and spent hours reading through past projects and financial reports. My brain felt like it was expanding every day. The work was hard, but I loved it. For the first time in 5 years, I felt useful. Important. Like I mattered. Living at the Wellington estate had its own rhythm. I woke up at 6 every morning and went for a run around the property. Martha made breakfast at 7. Mrs. Wellington and I reviewed the day's schedule at 8. By 9, we were either in the car heading to the office or starting work in the home office. We rarely finished before 7 in the evening. But I didn't mind. The busy schedule kept my mind off Brandon, though he made that difficult. The calls and texts continued for the first week. Then they stopped for a few days. Then they started again, more desperate this time. "Natasha, please talk to me. Your mother is worried. She hasn't heard from you. I made a mistake. Can we please just talk? Rochelle and I broke up. Was a mistake. I want you to come home." That last message made me laugh out loud. Of course they broke up. Rochelle didn't want Brandon, she wanted the lifestyle Brandon provided. And without me there to manage everything, Brandon was probably falling apart. I finally sent one message back. "Don't contact me again. You'll hear from my lawyers soon." Then I blocked his number. My mother was harder to deal with. I called her after the first week, told her I'd left Brandon and was staying with a friend while I figured things out. I couldn't tell her the whole truth yet, she'd worry too much. She was upset but supportive, asking if I wanted to come home to Ohio. "Not yet, Mom," I told her. "I need to handle some things here first." What I didn't tell her was that Mrs. Wellington's lawyers were already digging into Brandon's business, looking for evidence of fraud or mismanagement. They'd found some interesting things, money that didn't add up, deals that looked suspicious, including the $50,000 my mother had invested. "We can't prove anything yet," Sophie, the head lawyer, told me. "But we're building a case. If Brandon did what we think he did, your mother will get her money back. And you'll get a lot more than that in the divorce." The word divorce still made my stomach flip, but I was getting used to it. Meanwhile, I was changing in other ways too. Martha insisted on updating my wardrobe, saying Mrs. Wellington's niece's clothes weren't right for someone in my position. We spent a whole Saturday shopping and I came home with bags full of professional suits, dresses, and shoes. I got my hair cut and styled by Mrs. Wellington's personal stylist. I started going to the gym in the basement of the estate. By the end of the third week, when I looked in the mirror, I saw a different person. Confident. Professional. Strong. I also started making friends at Wellington Industries. Patricia, Mrs. Wellington's executive assistant, took me under her wing, teaching me all the unwritten rules of the business world. Sophie invited me to join her weekly lunch group with other women executives. Even Thomas, the driver, warmed up to me, sharing stories about Mrs. Wellington's early days building the company. She was fierce, he told me one afternoon as we drove to a meeting. When I started working for her 20 years ago, people still underestimated her because she was a woman. But she proved them wrong every single time. Sounds like someone else I know. I smiled at that. I liked the idea of being fierce. Then one morning at the end of the third week, everything changed. Mrs. Wellington and I were in her office reviewing a new development proposal when Patricia burst in, her face pale. Mrs. Wellington, I'm so sorry to interrupt, but there's something you need to see. She handed over her tablet, showing a news article. The headline read, Harris Investments under investigation for fraud. My heart stopped. Mrs. Wellington listened as Patricia read the article out loud. According to the report, several investors had filed complaints with the State Securities Commission, claiming Brandon had misled them about returns on their investments. The commission was opening a formal investigation. Is this because of what your lawyers found? I asked Mrs. Wellington quietly. No. We haven't filed anything yet. This is other investors, probably people who started asking questions when their returns didn't match what they were promised. My phone, which I'd unblocked earlier that week, immediately started buzzing. Brandon. Then my mother. Then numbers I didn't recognize, probably reporters. Turn it off, Mrs. Wellington said firmly. Patricia, draft a statement saying that Natasha Harris is no longer involved with Harris Investments and is currently employed by Wellington Industries. Send it to any press that asks. Sophie, check if Natasha's name is anywhere in Brandon's business documents. I want to make sure she's protected. Everyone jumped into action. I just sat there trying to process what was happening. This is bad for him, isn't it? I said. Very bad, Mrs. Wellington confirmed. If they find evidence of fraud, he could face serious legal trouble. Fines. Maybe even jail time. At minimum, his business is finished. My mother's investment. We'll make sure she gets it back. But Natasha, you need to understand something. This has nothing to do with you. You didn't cause this. Brandon did this to himself. But I felt responsible anyway. My mother trusted me when I told her Brandon's company was a good investment. Other people probably invested because they knew me, because they thought I wouldn't be married to someone dishonest. I need some air, I said, standing up. Take the rest of the day, Mrs. Wellington said gently. Go for a walk. Clear your head. Tomorrow will be busy. We'll need to make sure you're completely separated from this legally and publicly. I left the office and took the elevator down to the ground floor. Outside, the city was sunny and busy, people rushing to their next appointment, completely unaware that my old life was imploding. My phone rang again. This time it was a number I recognized, Brandon's mother, Helen. Against my better judgment, I answered. Natasha, thank God, Helen said, her voice frantic. Have you seen the news? This is terrible. Brandon needs you. You have to come home and help him fix this. I almost laughed. Help him fix it? Helen, Brandon threw me out of his car 3 weeks ago. He left me at a bus stop in the rain with no money or phone. Why would I help him? Because you're his wife. Because this affects you too. Actually, it doesn't. I don't work for his company. I never did. And I won't be his wife much longer. I'm filing for divorce. There was a long silence. Then, you can't be serious. After everything we've done for you? We gave you a life, a home, everything you could want. And now, when things get hard, you're just going to abandon him. Everything they'd done for me? The anger I'd been keeping under control suddenly burst free. Everything you did for me? Helen, I gave up my career for Brandon. I convinced my own mother to invest her retirement savings in his company. I spent 5 years making sure he looked good, making sure his house was perfect, making sure his parties impressed his investors. And what did I get? He cheated on me with my former roommate and literally pushed me out of his car. He made a mistake. Rochelle manipulated him. No, Helen. He made a choice. And now he has to deal with the consequences. Don't call me again. I hung up and blocked her number too. By the time I got back to the Wellington estate that evening, the story had spread everywhere. My phone had 63 missed calls. Social media was full of people talking about Brandon's scandal. Some people I knew from our old social circle were already posting about how they always knew something was off about him. Mrs. Wellington was waiting for me in the sitting room with a cup of tea. "How are you holding up?" she asked. "I don't know. Part of me feels guilty, like I should have seen this coming. But another part of me feels relieved? Is that terrible?" "It's not terrible. It's human. You're allowed to feel relieved that you got out before this explosion hit. You're allowed to be glad you're not tied to his sinking ship anymore." His mother called. She wanted me to come back and help him. Mrs. Wellington made a disapproving sound. Of course she did. That's what they always do. Try to guilt you into cleaning up their son's mess. You said no, I hope? I did. I blocked her number. Good. Now listen to me carefully, Natasha. The next few weeks are going to be difficult. There will be more news stories, more people calling, more drama. But you're going to keep your head up and keep working. You're going to show everyone that you are not defined by Brandon's mistakes. You are your own person building your own success. What if people think I knew about the fraud? What if they blame me too? Then we'll deal with it. But Sophie already checked. Your name isn't on any of the business documents. You never worked for Harris Investments. You're completely clean legally. And we'll make sure everyone knows that. She was right. I had to focus on moving forward, not looking back. The next few days were chaos. Reporters called Wellington Industries asking for comments. Old friends reached out, some genuinely concerned, others clearly just looking for gossip. My mother called every day, worried about her investment and worried about me. "I'm fine, Mom," I kept telling her. "I promise. Mrs. Wellington's lawyers are going to help you get your money back." "I don't care about the money. I care about you. Are you sure you're okay?" "I'm better than okay. I'm actually doing really well. I'll explain everything soon." Through it all, I kept working. Mrs. Wellington had me sit in on an important negotiation with a construction company. She let me draft my first proposal for a small development project. She introduced me to the board of directors as her new special assistant. "This is Natasha Harris," she told them. "She's brilliant, hardworking, and going to be essential to this company's future. I expect you all to treat her with the same respect you show me." Coming from Mrs. Wellington, that was practically a royal decree. By the end of the month, the dust was starting to settle. Brandon's investigation was ongoing, but it was no longer headline news. I'd successfully distanced myself from his company in the public eye. And I'd proven to Mrs. Wellington and her team that I could handle the pressure. One evening, as we were finishing dinner at the estate, Mrs. Wellington said, "You've done well, Natasha. Better than I expected, actually. I think it's time we made this official." "Made what official?" "Your position here. I'm promoting you to junior business analyst. $75,000 a year plus bonuses. You'll get your own office at headquarters. And next month, you'll present your first project proposal to the board." I stared at her, speechless. "Are you serious?" "I'm always serious about business. You've earned this, Natasha. Now don't make me regret it." That night, lying in bed in my beautiful blue room, I thought about where I'd been a month ago. Standing at a bus stop, broken and lost. Now I had a job, a purpose, and a future. I thought about Brandon, probably sitting in his house with lawyers trying to figure out how to save himself. I thought about Rochelle, who dumped him the moment things got hard. And I felt nothing. No anger, no sadness, no regret. Mrs. Wellington was right. The best revenge wasn't getting back at them. It was becoming so successful that they didn't matter anymore. And I was well on my way. 3 months after the bus stop, I stood in front of the board of directors of Wellington Industries, presenting my first major project proposal. My hands weren't even shaking. "The Riverside development has been stagnant for 2 years, I explained, showing slides on the big screen. The previous plan called for luxury condos, but the market research shows that area actually needs affordable housing and mixed-use retail space. I propose we shift the focus, bring in smaller investors who qualify for city tax breaks, and create something that actually serves the community while still generating profit." The board members, all much older than me, listened intently. One man, Gerald, who'd been skeptical of me from day one, raised his hand. "That's a significant change in direction," he said. "What makes you think this will work?" "Because I've done the research," I replied confidently. "The numbers are all in your packets. We'll make 15% less on each unit sold, but we'll sell them twice as fast." Plus, the city is offering grants for affordable housing developments. We can apply for up to $2 million in funding. Overall, we'll see returns 6 months earlier than the current plan predicts, with lower risk. Mrs. Wellington, sitting at the head of the table, smiled slightly. She'd helped me prepare this presentation for weeks, but these were my ideas, my research. After 30 minutes of questions and discussion, the board voted. The project was approved. My project. As everyone filed out of the conference room, Patricia caught my arm. "You killed it," she whispered. "Gerald never approves anything on the first presentation. You've officially impressed the board." I felt like I was floating. This was real. I was really doing this. Mrs. Wellington asked me to stay after everyone left. When we were alone, she said, "I'm proud of you. That was excellent work." "Thank you. I couldn't have done it without your guidance." "Maybe not, but you did the work. Remember that. Now there's something else we need to discuss. The Harris Investments situation." My good mood dimmed a little. I tried not to follow the news about Brandon, but it was hard to avoid completely. The fraud investigation had expanded. More investors had come forward. Things looked bad for him. "What about it?" I asked. "The investigators want to interview you. They're talking to anyone who had close contact with Brandon or knowledge of his business operations." My stomach dropped. "But I didn't work for him. I don't know anything about his company." "I know that and you know that, but they need to confirm it." "Sophie will go with you. Just tell the truth. You left your job to support your husband's career, but you never worked for Harris Investments directly. You had no access to the company's financial records or decision-making processes." "When?" "Next week. Don't worry about it. You'll be fine." Easy for her to say. The interview was scheduled for the following Tuesday. Sophie and I met with 2 investigators in a bland government office downtown. They asked me about my relationship with Brandon, what I knew about his business, whether I'd ever seen any suspicious activity. "No," I said honestly. "I trusted my husband. I thought his company was legitimate. I even convinced my mother to invest because I believed in him." "Did you ever review financial documents? Attend business meetings? Sign any paperwork for Harris Investments?" "No. Brandon always said I didn't need to worry about the business side of things. He handled everything." One of the investigators leaned forward. "Mrs. Harris, we're not accusing you of anything. We just need to understand the full picture. Your husband's company has lost investors over $4 million. $4 million. My mother's $50,000 was just a drop in that bucket. After an hour, they thanked me for my time and let me go. Sophie said I'd done well, answered everything correctly. But I felt sick the whole drive back to the office." "My mother's $50,000, I said to Sophie. "Is there any way to get it back?" "We're working on it. If Brandon has any assets left after this is over, we'll make sure your mother is on the list of creditors. But honestly, Natasha, there might not be much left." I called my mother that night and told her the truth. About everything. The affair, the bus stop, Mrs. Wellington, my new job, the investigation. She cried for both of us. "Baby, I'm so sorry," she said. "I'm sorry you went through all that alone. Why didn't you call me sooner?" "Because I needed to get strong first. I needed to prove to myself that I could handle it." "And did you? Prove it to yourself?" "Yes, I think I did." "Then I'm proud of you. And don't worry about the money. I'm not as concerned about that as I am about you being okay." "I'm more than okay, Mom. For the first time in years, I actually feel like myself again." Meanwhile, my transformation continued. Mrs. Wellington had me attending networking events, meeting other business leaders, building my own reputation. People were starting to know my name, not as Brandon's wife, but as Natasha Harris, the rising star at Wellington Industries. I also started running into people from my old life. At a fundraising gala, I bumped into Rachel, one of the wives from Brandon's social circle. She looked at me like she'd seen a ghost. "Natasha? Oh my God, we heard you'd left town. You look different." "I feel different," I said, smiling politely. "How have you been?" Good. "Listen, about Brandon." She lowered her voice. "I just want you to know, a lot of us had no idea what he was doing. The business stuff, I mean. If we'd known." "It's fine, Rachel. I didn't know either. I'm just glad I got out when I did." "We heard you're working for Mrs. Wellington now. That's amazing. You always were too smart to just be a housewife." I wanted to say that being a housewife wasn't the problem, being undervalued and controlled was. But I just smiled and changed the subject. Later that night, I ran into someone else. Rochelle. She was with a man I didn't recognize, both of them dressed expensively. When she saw me across the room, her face went white. She actually turned and tried to walk the other way, but I was already moving toward her. "Rochelle?" I said pleasantly. "What a surprise." She turned back, forcing a smile. "Natasha. I heard you were working for Wellington Industries now. That's great." "It is great. And you?" "Still living in my house." Her face went red. "Actually, Brandon and I aren't together anymore. It didn't work out." "What a shame," I said, not meaning it at all. "Well, it was good to see you. Enjoy your evening." I walked away before she could respond, feeling victorious. I didn't need to yell at her or make a scene. Just seeing her uncomfortable was enough. As the months passed, my life became a rhythm of work, growth, and small victories. I moved out of the guest room in the Wellington estate and into a smaller suite in another wing that felt more like my own apartment. I was still technically living with Mrs. Wellington, but I had my own space, my own routine. I also started reconnecting with my old self. I called college friends I'd lost touch with. I took a painting class on weekends. I went to concerts and movies alone just because I wanted to. And slowly I started to realize I was happy. Not the fake happy I'd pretended to be with Brandon, but genuinely, deeply happy. One day, about 4 months after the bus stop, Mrs. Wellington called me into her office with a serious expression. "Sit down, Natasha. We need to talk." My heart jumped. Had I done something wrong? "What is it?" "I'm making some changes to the company structure. I'm not getting any younger, and I need to start thinking about succession planning." "Okay. I'm creating a new position. Chief Operating Officer. This person would oversee all development projects, manage relationships with our major clients, and work directly with me on strategic planning. It's the second highest position in the company." "That sounds like a big responsibility. Who are you considering for it?" Mrs. Wellington smiled. "You if you want it." I stared at her. "Me? But I've only been here 4 months. I barely know what I'm doing half the time." "You know more than you think. And more importantly, you care. You care about doing good work, about making smart decisions, about building something real. That matters more than years of experience." "What about Patricia? Or Sophie? They've been with you for years." "Patricia is brilliant at her job but doesn't want more responsibility. Sophie is focused on the legal side. This needs someone with vision and hunger. That's you, Natasha." I don't know what to say. "Say yes. Take the job. Prove to yourself and everyone else what you're capable of." So I did. I said yes. The announcement was made at a company-wide meeting the following week. I could see the surprise on people's faces but also respect. I'd earned my place here and everyone knew it. That night I celebrated with Patricia, Sophie, and a few other colleagues who'd become friends. We went to a nice restaurant, drank wine, and laughed about everything. "You know what's funny?" Patricia said. "When Mrs. Wellington first brought you in, I thought you were some charity case she was helping." "I'm sorry about that." "Don't be. I kinda was a charity case. But she saw something in me that I didn't see in myself." "Well, you've definitely proved yourself. To everyone." As I walked back to my car that night, my phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. "Congratulations on your promotion. I saw it in the business news. I'm happy for you. Brandon." I stared at the message for a long moment. Then I blocked the number and deleted the text. Brandon had no place in my new life. This success, this happiness, this person I was becoming, it had nothing to do with him. I'd risen from the ashes of that bus stop and I was never going back. 6 months after the bus stop incident, Brandon's world was falling apart while mine was coming together. I learned about his troubles through the business news, not through any direct contact. Harris Investments had been officially shut down by the state. The fraud investigation had confirmed what everyone suspected. Brandon had been running what basically amounted to a scheme, promising investors returns he couldn't deliver, using money from new investors to pay old ones, and funneling company funds into his personal accounts. The legal consequences were severe. Brandon was facing multiple lawsuits, criminal charges, and the complete destruction of his reputation. His assets had been frozen pending the resolution of the cases against him. The house we'd lived in together, the one he'd bought before we were married, was being sold to pay back investors. I should have felt something. Satisfaction maybe, or vindication. But mostly I just felt tired. Tired of hearing about it, tired of people asking me about it, tired of having my past life constantly dragged into my present. Mrs. Wellington seemed to sense my frustration. One morning, as we reviewed the quarterly financial reports, she said, "You're distracted." "I'm sorry. It's just. Brandon's trial starts next week." "How did you know I was thinking about that?" "Because you've been quiet for 3 days and you only get quiet when something's bothering you." Are you planning to attend? No. Why would I? It has nothing to do with me anymore. Legally that's true. But emotionally you might need closure. It's okay to admit that. I don't need closure from watching him get convicted. I got my closure the day I accepted your job offer. Mrs. Wellington smiled. Good answer. Then let's focus on this. She gestured to the reports. We're having our best year in a decade. The Riverside project you proposed is ahead of schedule and under budget. We've acquired 3 new properties. And you, my dear, are a large part of that success. I felt a glow of pride. This was real. This was what mattered. But of course the universe had other plans. That afternoon I was in my office reviewing a contract when Patricia buzzed me. Natasha, there's someone here to see you. He doesn't have an appointment, but he says it's urgent. A Mr. James Harris. James. Brandon's father. I hadn't spoken to James since before the bus stop. He'd always been distant with me, clearly thinking I wasn't good enough for his son. The feeling was mutual. Tell him I'm busy, I said. I did. He says he'll wait as long as necessary. I sighed. Fine. Send him in. But Patricia, if he's still here in 15 minutes, come interrupt with a fake emergency. You got it. James Harris walked into my office looking like he'd aged 10 years and 6 months. His expensive suit couldn't hide the stress in his face. He looked around my corner office, the one Mrs. Wellington had given me when I became CEO, with what looked like surprise. Natasha, he said. Thank you for seeing me. I'm not sure I had much choice. What do you want, James? He sat down without being invited. I want to talk about Brandon. Then you're wasting your time. I have nothing to say about him. Please. Just hear me out. He leaned forward, his hands clasped. I know what happened between you two. I know he made terrible mistakes. But he's still my son and he's in serious trouble. I'm aware. I read the news. The trial starts next week. If he's convicted on all charges, he could go to prison for up to 15 years. And? James looked shocked. And doesn't that mean anything to you? You were married to him for 5 years. I was married to him. Past tense. He ended that marriage when he cheated on me and literally pushed me out of his car on a rainy night. Whatever happens to him now is his own fault. He made mistakes. He committed fraud, James. He stole money from people who trusted him, including my mother. That's not a mistake. That's a crime. Your mother will get her money back. We're working on a settlement. We both know there isn't enough money left to pay back all his victims. My mother will be lucky to get 20 cents on the dollar. James looked down at his hands. I know. But Natasha, the lawyer said it would help Brandon's case if you testified on his behalf. If you could speak to his character, say that you never saw any evidence of wrongdoing. I actually laughed. You want me to commit perjury for him? After everything he did? Not perjury. Just explain that he's not a bad person. That he made poor decisions but didn't mean to hurt anyone. No. Natasha, please. No. I stood up. James, I'm going to say this once. Brandon is not my problem anymore. He made his choices and now he has to face the consequences. I won't lie for him. I won't help him. I won't even think about him unless I absolutely have to. Now please leave my office. You've changed, he said bitterly, standing up. You used to be kind, caring. Now you're just cold. No, James. I haven't changed. I just stopped letting your family use me. There's a difference. He left without another word. After he was gone, I sat back in my chair and took a deep breath. Patricia appeared in the doorway. You okay, boss? Yeah. Thanks for the backup, but I didn't need it. I could hear everything. You handled it perfectly. After she left, I tried to focus on work, but I couldn't stop thinking about the conversation. Part of me felt guilty. After all, I'd loved Brandon once. Didn't I owe him something? But the larger part of me knew the truth. I didn't owe him anything. He'd made his choices long before he got caught. He'd risked other people's money, lied to investors, and broken the law. The fact that we used to be married didn't change any of that. That evening, Mrs. Wellington invited me to dinner at a new restaurant she wanted to try. Over appetizers, she asked, "How did it go with James? How did you know about that?" Patricia told me he came by. She was worried about you. I'm fine. He wanted me to testify at Brandon's trial, say nice things about him. And you said no. Of course I said no. Why would I help him? Mrs. Wellington sipped her wine. You wouldn't, and you shouldn't. But Natasha, I want you to be honest with yourself. How much of your success these past 6 months has been about moving forward, and how much has been about getting revenge? The The question surprised me. What do you mean? I mean, are you doing all this, the job, the promotions, the hard work, because you genuinely love it? Or because you want to prove something to Brandon? I thought about it carefully. At first, maybe it was partly about revenge. About showing him he made a mistake. But now it's just about me. I love this job. I love feeling competent and valued. I love building something real. Brandon barely crosses my mind anymore. Good. Because revenge is a weak motivation. It means you're still letting the other person control your choices. True success is when you're so focused on your own path that you forget to look back. She was right as usual. The next week, Brandon's trial began. I didn't attend, but I couldn't avoid hearing about it. It was all over the local news. Investors testified about their losses. Accountants explained how Brandon had hidden money. His lawyers tried to argue that he'd just been bad at business, not intentionally fraudulent. It didn't work. After a 3-week trial, the jury took less than a day to find him guilty on 12 counts of fraud, 4 counts of theft, and 6 counts of money laundering. The judge set sentencing for 2 months later. People kept asking me how I felt about it. The honest answer was, I didn't know. There was no satisfaction in watching someone I'd once loved destroy his life. But there was also no sympathy for someone who'd brought it on himself. During this time, something else started happening. I began getting calls from other women. Women who'd been through similar situations, husbands who betrayed them, partners who underestimated them, relationships that ended badly. They'd read about my story in the business news and wanted advice. At first, I didn't know what to tell them. But Mrs. Wellington encouraged me to share my experience. You have a story that could help people, she said. Don't waste it. So I started accepting speaking invitations. First at a local women's business group, then at a college, then at a conference. I talked about resilience, about rebuilding after betrayal, about finding your own value independent of anyone else's opinion. The response was overwhelming. Women lined up after my talks to thank me, to share their own stories, to ask for guidance. I realized I'd stumbled into something important. Mrs. Wellington noticed. You're good at this. Have you thought about making it official? Making what official? A mentorship program. Through Wellington Industries. We could sponsor women who are trying to restart their careers after difficult life events. You could lead it. That would take time away from my COO duties. So we'll hire an assistant COO to handle some of the operational work. This is important, Natasha. You've proven you can do the job. Now you can help other women do the same. The program launched 2 months later. We called it Second Chances. It provided mentorship, job training, and sometimes direct employment for women rebuilding their lives after divorce, domestic situations, or career setbacks. I personally mentored 3 women, helping them develop business skills and confidence. It was some of the most rewarding work I'd ever done. Meanwhile, Brandon's sentencing day arrived. He got 8 years in prison with the possibility of parole after 5. He'd also have to pay restitution to his victims, though everyone knew that money was gone. I learned all this from a news alert on my phone. I read it, acknowledged it, and moved on with my day. It was over. Really, truly over. That evening, I had dinner with my mother, who'd flown in for a visit. She'd recovered from the financial loss. Mrs. Wellington had helped her file a claim with the state's Victim Compensation Fund, and she'd gotten back $30,000 of her $50,000 investment. It wasn't everything, but it was something. How are you really doing, baby? My mother asked over dessert. With everything that's happened? I'm good, Mom. Really good. Better than I've been in years. Do you ever miss it? The life you had with Brandon? I thought about the question honestly. No. I miss who I thought he was. I miss the idea of having a partner. But the actual life? No. I was suffocating in that life and I didn't even realize it. And now I can breathe. My mother smiled. Then that's all I need to hear. As we left the restaurant, I saw a familiar car across the street. For a second, my heart jumped. It looked like Brandon's Bentley. But of course it wasn't. Brandon didn't have a Bentley anymore. He didn't have anything except a prison sentence and a destroyed reputation. I looked at that car and realized I felt nothing. No fear, no anger, no regret. Just nothing. That's when I knew I was really free. The morning I officially became CEO of Wellington Industries, it was raining. Not the cold, miserable rain from that night at the bus stop, but a gentle spring rain that made everything smell fresh and clean. Mrs. Wellington had announced her retirement 3 weeks earlier, shocking the business community. She was 84 now, and while she was still sharp as ever, she decided it was time to step back. The board had unanimously voted to name me as her successor. Me. 29 years old, in the business for only 18 months. CEO of a company worth over $500 million. The press conference was held in the main conference room at Wellington headquarters. Reporters filled every seat, cameras lined the walls, and I stood at the podium in a navy blue suit Mrs. Wellington had helped me pick out. "I know what many of you are thinking," I began. "I'm young. I'm relatively new to this industry. Why me?" I paused. The answer is simple. Mrs. Eleanor Wellington saw something in me that I didn't see in myself. She gave me a chance when I had nothing. And over the past 18 months, I've worked harder than I've ever worked in my life to prove I deserved that chance. I went on to outline my vision for Wellington Industries, continuing the company's reputation for quality development while expanding into sustainable and affordable housing. I talked about the Second Chances program and how we'd be expanding it. I answered questions about my background, my plans, my qualifications. One reporter asked the question I'd been expecting. "Ms. Harris, how do you respond to people who say you only got this position because of your relationship with Mrs. Wellington? That you're not qualified?" I smiled. I'd say look at the numbers. Under my guidance as COO, Wellington Industries has had its best financial year in a decade. We've completed 5 major projects, all under budget and ahead of schedule. We've expanded into 3 new markets. I didn't get this job because of my relationship with Mrs. Wellington. I got it because I earned it. The room erupted with more questions, but Mrs. Wellington stepped to the microphone. "If I may," she said, her voice still strong despite her age. "I've been in this business for 60 years. I've worked with hundreds of executives, managers, and business people. Natasha Harris is one of the smartest, most dedicated professionals I've ever encountered. She doesn't need me to defend her qualifications. Her work speaks for itself. Now, if you'll excuse us, we have a company to run." The applause was genuine as we left the stage. That afternoon, I sat in what was now my office, the big corner office on the top floor that had been Mrs. Wellington's. She'd moved to a smaller office down the hall, saying she'd still come in a few days a week to consult but wanted me to have the space. Patricia knocked and entered. "How does it feel, boss?" "Surreal. Terrifying. Exciting. All at once. You'll be great. We all believe in you." She handed me a file. "Also, this arrived for you." It was a formal letter from Brandon's lawyer. The divorce papers. We'd been separated for over a year now, and with Brandon in prison, there was no reason to delay anymore. I signed them without hesitation and handed them back to Patricia. "Can you make sure these get filed?" "Of course." After she left, I sat back in my chair and looked out the window at the city. 1 year ago, I was standing at a bus stop in the rain thinking my life was over. Now I was the CEO of a major company, running a successful mentorship program, and about to be officially divorced from a man who no longer had any power over me. My phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. "Saw your press conference. Congratulations. You deserve it." I didn't recognize the number, but something made me respond, "Thank you." "Who is this?" "Isaiah Foster. We met at the charity gala a few months ago. I'm the architect who spilled wine on your dress." I smiled, remembering. Isaiah had been charming and funny, genuinely interested in my work rather than just making small talk. He'd apologized profusely for the wine stain, and we'd ended up talking for an hour about urban development and sustainable design. "I remember," I texted back. "How did you get my number?" "Patricia gave it to me. I hope that's okay. I wanted to congratulate you personally, and maybe ask if you'd like to have dinner sometime." I stared at the message. I hadn't dated since Brandon. Hadn't even thought about it, really. I'd been so focused on work, on rebuilding my life, on proving myself. But Isaiah was nice. Kind. He treated me like an equal, not a trophy or a project. "I'd like that," I typed. "But I should warn you, I'm incredibly busy these days." "So am I. We can be busy together. How about Friday?" "Friday works." We made plans to meet at a small Italian restaurant I loved. Nothing fancy, nothing pretentious. Just dinner and conversation. Mrs. Wellington caught me smiling at my phone later that afternoon. "Good news?" she asked. "Maybe. I have a date on Friday. The architect. Patricia mentioned he'd been asking about you. Is there anything you don't know?" "Very little." She smiled. "He's a good man from what I've heard. Successful, kind, comes from a decent family. But more importantly, he seems to actually respect women as equals, which is unfortunately rare. I'm not looking for anything serious. I'm barely divorced." "You're not divorced yet. You're separated. There's a difference. And Natasha, you don't have to be looking for something serious to enjoy someone's company. You're allowed to just live. Have fun. Remember what that feels like. She was right. I'd been so focused on work and revenge and rebuilding that I'd forgotten how to just be a person. Friday came quickly. I left work early, something I rarely did, and went home to change. I'd finally moved out of the Wellington estate 2 months ago into my own apartment downtown. It was smaller than the house I'd shared with Brandon but felt more like home than anywhere I'd lived in years. I chose a simple green dress, did my makeup, and took a cab to the restaurant. Isaiah was already there, waiting outside with an umbrella since it was drizzling again. "You look beautiful," he said, and it didn't sound like a line. "Thank you. You look nice too." Dinner was easy. We talked about our work, our families, our favorite books and movies. He told me about growing up in Seattle, about how he'd always wanted to design buildings that made people feel something. I told him about my mother, about my love for painting, about how I'd rediscovered parts of myself I thought were lost. I didn't tell him about Brandon. Not yet. That was a story for another time if there was another time. "So," he said over dessert, "what's it like being the youngest CEO of a major company in the state?" "Honestly, terrifying. I keep waiting for someone to figure out I have no idea what I'm doing." "I doubt that. I've read about your projects. The Riverside development especially. That was brilliant." "You've read about my projects?" He smiled sheepishly. "I may have done some research after we met. Architect thing. We like to know who the good developers are." "And am I a good developer?" "You're excellent. Your buildings actually make sense. They serve the community, not just the bottom line." "That's rare." We talked until the restaurant was closing. When Isaiah walked me to my cab, he asked, "Can I see you again?" "I'd like that." "Good. Because I really enjoyed tonight." He didn't try to kiss me, didn't push for more. Just smiled, made sure I got safely in the cab, and waved as I drove away. On the drive home, I felt something I hadn't felt in years. Light. Happy. Like maybe there was room in my life for more than just work and healing. The next few weeks were busy. As CEO, I had to restructure some departments, hire new people, and present our quarterly earnings to shareholders. The Second Chances program accepted its 10th participant, a woman named Jennifer who'd left an abusive marriage with 2 kids and was trying to restart her career. I personally helped her prepare for interviews and eventually found her a position in our accounting department. And I went on 3 more dates with Isaiah. Dinner, an art gallery opening, a walk in the park. Nothing rushed, nothing forced. Just 2 people getting to know each other. Mrs. Wellington noticed the change in me. "You're smiling more," she observed one afternoon. "Am I?" "You are. It's good. Life is more than just work, even for people like us." "People like us?" "Driven. Ambitious. Sometimes so focused on the goal that we forget to enjoy the journey." I thought about that. She was right. I'd been so determined to prove myself, to become successful, to show Brandon what he'd lost, that I'd forgotten to actually live. "Thank you," I said. "For what?" "For everything. For finding me at that bus stop. For giving me a chance. For teaching me everything you know. I wouldn't be here without you." Mrs. Wellington reached across her desk and took my hand. "Yes, you would. Maybe it would have taken longer, maybe the path would have been different, but you would have found your way. I just helped speed up the inevitable." That night, I went home to my apartment and looked at the stack of old photos I'd been meaning to go through. Pictures from my life with Brandon, holidays, parties, vacations. I'd been avoiding them, not sure how I'd feel seeing them. But now, looking at them, I just felt distant. Like I was looking at someone else's life. That woman in the photos, smiling next to Brandon, wasn't me anymore. Or maybe she was me, just a version that didn't know her own worth yet. I didn't rip up the photos or burn them in some dramatic gesture. I just packed them away in a box and put them in storage. They were part of my history, but they weren't my present or my future. My phone rang. "Isaiah." "Hey, you busy?" he asked. "Just sorting through some old stuff." "Why?" "I'm working late on a project, and I could use a second opinion. Want to come by my office?" "I'll order food." I smiled. "Sure. Text me the address." An hour later, I was in Isaiah's office, a converted loft with drafting tables and models of buildings everywhere. He showed me his latest project, a community center for an underserved neighborhood. His enthusiasm was infectious as he explained his vision. "The problem with most architecture," he said, "is that we forget buildings are for people. We get caught up in making something impressive or award-winning, and we forget to make something useful." "That's how I feel about development," I said. "Wellington Industries used to just build luxury properties for rich people. Now we're focusing on mixed-income projects that actually help communities. That's why I wanted your opinion on this." He showed me the plans. The city is giving me a limited budget, so I need to be smart about materials and design. But I don't want it to look cheap. We spent 3 hours going over his plans, talking about costs and materials and creative solutions. By the time we finished, it was past midnight. I should go, I said, yawning. Let me drive you home. It's too late for a cab. In his car, we sat in comfortable silence for a bit. Then he said, "Can I ask you something?" "Sure. Your last name is Harris, but I haven't seen you wear a wedding ring since we met. And you live alone. Are you divorced?" I appreciated his directness. "Almost. Separated for over a year. The papers are being processed now. Do you mind if I ask what happened?" He cheated. Threw me out of the car one night and left me at a bus stop in the rain. Isaiah's hands tightened on the steering wheel. "He what?" "It's okay. It was actually the best thing that could have happened to me. That's how I met Mrs. Wellington. She was at the same bus stop. Still, that's..." He shook his head. "I'm sorry that happened to you." "Don't be. I'm not sorry anymore. It led me here." He pulled up in front of my building and turned to look at me. "Natasha, I should tell you, I really like you. Not just because you're successful or smart, though you're definitely both. But because you're real. You don't pretend to be something you're not. I like you too, Isaiah. But I should be honest, I'm not ready for anything serious yet. I'm barely going to be divorced, I'm still figuring out who I am, and I don't want to rush into something new just because I'm lonely." "That's fair. How about this, we keep doing what we're doing. Dinner, talking, spending time together. No labels, no pressure. Just seeing where it goes." "I can do that." He smiled. "Good. Because I'm not going anywhere." As I walked into my building, I realized I was smiling. Really, genuinely smiling. Not the polite smile I'd worn for years with Brandon, but a real one. Life was good. Better than good. I had a career I loved, people who respected me, a future I was building on my own terms. And maybe, just maybe, I had space for something more. 8 months after becoming CEO, I was in the middle of a board meeting when Patricia's text interrupted. "Brandon is here. Security is holding him in the lobby. What do you want me to do?" My first instinct was to have him thrown out. My second was curiosity. What could he possibly want? "I'll be right there," I texted back. I excused myself from the meeting and took the elevator down to the lobby. Through the glass walls, I could see him sitting on one of the modern couches, looking uncomfortable. Security guards stood nearby, watching him carefully. He'd aged. Prison had not been kind to Brandon. His expensive haircut was gone, replaced by something basic and short. He'd lost weight, but not in a healthy way. He looked gaunt, tired. His clothes were cheap, probably the best he could afford with his assets gone. When he saw me approaching, he stood up quickly. I noticed his hands were shaking. "Natasha, thank you for seeing me." I didn't sit down. "You have 5 minutes. What do you want? Can we talk somewhere private?" "No. Whatever you have to say, you can say it here." He looked at the security guards, then back at me. "I made a mistake. The biggest mistake of my life. I know I hurt you, I know I don't deserve your forgiveness, but I need your help." I almost laughed. "My help? Are you serious right now? I got out of prison early. Good behavior. But I have nothing, Natasha. My parents won't talk to me, my friends have all disappeared, I can't get a job because of my record. I'm living in a motel and working night shifts at a grocery store. And this is my problem because you're my wife." "Ex-wife. The divorce was finalized 3 months ago." He flinched. "Right. Ex-wife. But we were together for 5 years. That has to count for something. You're CEO of Wellington Industries now. You're successful, you have money, you have influence. You could help me get back on my feet. A job maybe. Or a loan. Just something to give me a fresh start." I stared at him, trying to find any feeling at all. Anger, pity, satisfaction. But there was nothing. He was just a stranger who used to be part of my life. "Do you remember that night?" I asked quietly. "The night you threw me out of the car?" "Natasha. Do you remember what you said to me? You told me to do whatever I want and figure it out like an adult. You pushed me out into the rain with no phone, no money, no way to get home. You left me at a bus stop in the middle of nowhere." "I know. I'm sorry. I was angry, I wasn't thinking." "No, you were thinking. You were thinking that I was worthless, that I didn't matter, that you could just discard me when I became inconvenient. You were thinking about Rochelle, about your affair, about yourself. You weren't thinking about the woman who gave up her career for you, who supported you, who convinced her own mother to invest in your fraudulent company." Brandon's face went red. "I made mistakes. You committed crimes. You stole money from people who trusted you. You lied, you cheated, and you destroyed lives. My mother still hasn't recovered financially from trusting you. I'll pay her back. With what? Your grocery store salary? With your help. That's what I'm asking for. A second chance. I stepped closer to him and he actually backed up a little. I stood at that bus stop for 10 minutes before Mrs. Wellington found me. 10 minutes in the rain, crying with nothing. Do you know what I thought about during those 10 minutes? He didn't answer. I thought about all the times I made myself smaller so you could feel bigger. All the times I pretended your ideas were brilliant when they were mediocre. All the times I smiled and played the perfect wife while you treated me like an accessory. And I thought, I deserve better than this. You do. You did. I know that now. No, Brandon. You don't know anything. Because if you did, you wouldn't be here asking me for help. You'd understand that the woman who stood at that bus stop died that night. The woman standing in front of you now is someone completely different. Someone who doesn't owe you anything. Please, Natasha. I'm desperate. Good. Now you know how I felt. Except when I was desperate, I didn't go crawling to the person who hurt me. I picked myself up and built something new. I can change. I can be better. Maybe you can. But that's not my problem to solve. You made your choices, Brandon. You chose to cheat. You chose to commit fraud. You chose to throw me out of that car. Now you get to live with the consequences. What am I supposed to do? The same thing you told me to do that night. Figure it out like an adult. I turned to security. Please escort Mr. Harris out of the building. He's not to be allowed back. Natasha, wait. But I was already walking away back to the elevator. I didn't look back, didn't hesitate. Behind me, I could hear him calling my name, but it didn't matter. When I got back upstairs, Patricia was waiting. You okay? She asked. I'm fine. Actually, I'm better than fine. Let's get back to the meeting. The rest of the day passed normally. I didn't think about Brandon again until that evening when I met Isaiah for dinner. We've been dating for about 4 months now, nothing too serious but comfortable and easy. You seem different tonight, he observed over appetizers. Something happened? I told him about Brandon's visit. Isaiah listened without interrupting, his face getting harder as I explained. What did you say to him? He asked when I finished. I told him no. I told him he had to figure out his own life just like I had to figure out mine. Good. He doesn't deserve your help. I know. But there was a moment, just a second, where I almost felt sorry for him. He looked so broken and pathetic. That's because you're a good person. But feeling sorry for someone doesn't mean you have to rescue them, especially when they created their own problems. You're right. I guess part of me wanted to feel something. Satisfaction maybe, or vindication. But I just felt empty. Isaiah reached across the table and took my hand. That's not emptiness. That's closure. You don't feel anything because he doesn't matter anymore. He's not your problem, he's not your concern, he's not even a part of your life. That's a good thing. I squeezed his hand back. When did you get so wise? I had a good teacher. My mom. She left my dad after he cheated on her when I was 10. He came crawling back years later, asking for money, asking for help. She told him the same thing you told Brandon, figure it out yourself. Did he? Eventually. He's actually doing okay now. But it took him hitting rock bottom completely before he was willing to change. That's what some people need. We finished dinner and went back to his place. His loft had become familiar to me over the past few months. I knew where he kept the good coffee, which spots on the floor creaked, how to work his complicated stereo system. We sat on his couch and I leaned against him, feeling comfortable and safe. Natasha, he said after a while. I need to tell you something. I sat up, worried by his serious tone. What is it? I'm falling for you. Actually, I've probably already fallen for you. I know we said no pressure, no labels, just seeing where things go. But I need you to know how I feel. My heart started beating faster. Isaiah. You don't have to say anything back. I'm not asking for anything. I just needed to be honest with you. I care about you, Natasha. A lot. And I'm willing to wait as long as you need, or to walk away if that's what you need. But I wanted you to know. I looked at this kind, patient man who'd spent 4 months getting to know me without pushing, without demanding, without trying to change me. He was nothing like Brandon. He was everything I hadn't known I needed. I'm falling for you too, I said quietly. It scares me because I promised myself I wouldn't rush into anything new. But you're not something new. You're something right. He smiled and kissed me gently. I can work with that. That night, lying in his bed, I thought about the journey I'd taken. From that bus stop to the CEO's office. From being thrown away to being valued. From feeling worthless to knowing my worth. Brandon's visit had been a test, I realized. A test to see if I was really over it, really healed, really moved on. And I had passed. The next morning, I woke up to a text from Mrs. Wellington. I heard about Brandon's visit yesterday. Are you all right? I'm perfect, I texted back. He's out of my life for good now. Good. Because I have a surprise for you. Come to the office when you can. When I got to Wellington Industries, Mrs. Wellington was waiting in what used to be her office with a big smile. What's the surprise? I asked. I've been working on something for the past few months. A foundation. The Wellington Foundation for Women's Empowerment. It will fund scholarships, job training, business loans, and legal services for women rebuilding their lives after divorce or domestic situations. That's amazing. How can I help? You already have. I'm naming you as the founding director. You'll oversee the foundation while still running Wellington Industries. I know it's a lot, but I think you can handle it. I felt tears prick my eyes. Are you sure? Completely sure. You've proven yourself 1,000 times over. And more importantly, you understand what these women are going through because you've been there. You're the perfect person for this. Thank you. For everything. Stop thanking me. You earned this. Now let's get to work. We have a lot to do. That afternoon, I called my mother and told her about the foundation. Baby, I'm so proud of you, she said, her voice thick with emotion. Look at you. Look at what you've become. I couldn't have done it without you. You always believed in me even when I didn't believe in myself. That's what mothers do. But Natasha, you did this. You took something terrible and turned it into something beautiful. That's all you. After we hung up, I sat in my office and looked out at the city. Somewhere out there, Brandon was starting his night shift at a grocery store, probably bitter and angry about how his life had turned out. But that wasn't my concern anymore. I had work to do. A foundation to build. A company to run. A relationship to nurture. A life to live. And for the first time in years, I was exactly where I was supposed to be. 18 months after becoming CEO, I stood in the same spot where Mrs. Wellington had found me that rainy night, the bus stop that had changed my life. But this time I wasn't alone in crying. I was surrounded by cameras, reporters, and city officials. Wellington Industries was funding a community center in this neighborhood, and I'd insisted on having the announcement here. The local news thought it was a strange choice for a press conference, but I knew exactly what I was doing. This bus stop might seem like a random location, I said into the microphone, but it's not. 2 years ago, I was here at my lowest point. I'd lost everything: my marriage, my home, my sense of self-worth. A stranger found me here and gave me a chance to rebuild my life. Today, I'm paying that forward. I went on to explain the community center project, a 3-story building with job training programs, childcare services, computer labs, and meeting spaces. All free to the community. Wellington Industries was funding the entire $50 million project. We're also partnering with the Wellington Foundation to offer business loans and mentorship programs for women starting their own companies, I added. Because everyone deserves a second chance. After the press conference, Mrs. Wellington came up beside me. She was 85 now, officially retired but still showing up for important events. That was quite a speech, she said. I wanted people to understand why this matters. This neighborhood, this bus stop, it's where I learned that rock bottom is actually a solid foundation to build on. Look at you. Turning into a philosopher. I laughed. I learned from the best. The Community Center project was just one of many initiatives I'd launched as CEO. In the past 18 months, Wellington Industries had become known for more than just development. We were known for our commitment to social impact. Every major project now included affordable housing components. The Second Chances program had helped over 50 women restart their careers. The Wellington Foundation had given out $2 million in business loans and scholarships. And financially, we were doing better than ever. Turns out that doing good business and doing good for the community aren't mutually exclusive. My personal life had also settled into a happy rhythm. Isaiah and I had been together for over a year now. We'd moved in together 6 months ago, a decision that felt right and natural. He proposed last month over breakfast. Nothing fancy, just asked if I wanted to spend the rest of my life with him. I'd said yes without hesitation. But this time was different. This time I was choosing a partner who saw me as an equal. Someone who celebrated my success instead of feeling threatened by it. Someone who'd rather make dinner together than have me wait on him. The wedding was planned for next spring. Small, intimate, just family and close friends. Mrs. Wellington would be walking me down the aisle at my request. Are you sure about this? my mother had asked when I told her I was getting married again. It hasn't been that long since Brandon. I'm sure, Mom. Isaiah is nothing like Brandon. He's kind and patient and he actually values me. Well, if you're sure, then I'm happy for you, baby. Meanwhile, Brandon had become a distant memory. I hadn't heard from him directly since the day he showed up at my office, but I'd heard through mutual acquaintances that he'd moved to another state, was working at a different grocery store, and was slowly trying to rebuild his life. Rochelle had apparently gotten married to some wealthy businessman, then divorced him within a year when he found out she was cheating. Last I heard, she was working as a real estate agent somewhere in California. I felt nothing about either piece of news. They were strangers now, people who'd briefly intersected with my life but had no place in my present or future. One afternoon, I was working in my office when Patricia buzzed me. Natasha, there's someone here to see you. She doesn't have an appointment, but she says it's important. Her name is Jennifer Blake. She was in the Second Chances program. I remembered Jennifer. Single mother of 2, left an abusive marriage, had been working in our accounting department for about a year. Send her in. Jennifer came in looking nervous but determined. She was dressed professionally, her hair neat, her posture confident. Miss Harris, I'm sorry to bother you without an appointment, she began. It's no bother. Sit down. What can I do for you? I wanted to thank you personally. A year ago, I was living in a shelter with my kids trying to figure out how to survive. You gave me a job, helped me find affordable housing, connected me with childcare services. Because of you, my life completely changed. That's wonderful, Jennifer. But you did the work. I just gave you an opportunity. That's why I'm here. I want to pay it forward. I've been saving money, and I'm ready to start my own bookkeeping business. I applied for a loan through the Wellington Foundation. If I get it, I'll be able to help other women who are where I was a year ago. I felt a warmth in my chest. This was exactly what I'd hoped for when we started the program. Have you submitted your business plan? I asked. Yes, to the Foundation's review board. They said they'd have an answer in a few weeks. I pulled up my computer and found her application. I read through it quickly. Her plan was solid, well-researched, and realistic. The loan committee would definitely approve it. Jennifer, between you and me, I think you're going to get that loan. Your plan is excellent. But I have a better idea. What if Wellington Industries became your first client? We could use an outside bookkeeping firm for some of our smaller properties. You'd need to hire staff, but it would give you guaranteed income while you build up other clients. Her eyes went wide. Are you serious? Completely serious. Send me a formal proposal this week, and we'll set up a meeting with our finance team. After she left, practically floating, Patricia came in with a knowing smile. You're getting soft in your old age, she teased. I'm 29, Patricia. And already giving away business to former employees. Mrs. Wellington would be proud. Mrs. Wellington was the one who taught me that good business isn't just about money. It's about building something that lasts. That evening, I had dinner with Mrs. Wellington at her estate. She'd invited me to discuss something important, but wouldn't say what over the phone. I've been thinking about my legacy, she began over soup. I've built a successful company, helped a lot of people, made a good life. But I want to do more. You've already done so much, I said. Not enough. I'm 85 years old, Natasha. I don't have a lot of time left. Maybe 10 years, maybe 15 if I'm lucky. I want to make sure that everything I've built continues after I'm gone. Wellington Industries isn't going anywhere. You've set it up to. I'm not talking about the company. I'm talking about the foundation, the programs, the impact we're making. I'm going to put the majority of my personal fortune, about $200 million, into the Wellington Foundation. But I need someone I trust to oversee it. You want me to run the foundation full-time? No. I want you to run it alongside the company. I know it's a lot, but you're the only person I trust to handle both. You understand the mission. You've lived it. I sat back, overwhelmed. $200 million. The good we could do with that kind of funding. I don't know what to say. Say yes. Say you'll carry on the work we started. Say you'll help other women the way I helped you. Of course I will. But Mrs. Wellington, you're not going anywhere anytime soon. She smiled. I certainly plan to stick around as long as possible. But it's important to have plans in place. I learned that the hard way when my son died suddenly. I don't want Wellington Industries or the foundation to suffer because I didn't prepare properly. We spent the rest of dinner discussing details, legal structures, board members, investment strategies. By the end of the night, I had a clear picture of what needed to happen. A week later, the board of directors met to discuss Mrs. Wellington's proposal. There was some concern about the financial commitment, but the numbers spoke for themselves. The foundation's work was already generating positive publicity for Wellington Industries. Clients wanted to work with us because of our values, not despite them. The board voted unanimously to approve the plan. That same week, something else happened. I got a letter from Brandon's parole officer. Apparently, part of Brandon's parole conditions required him to make restitution to his victims. My mother was on that list. The letter explained that Brandon had managed to save $15,000 working various jobs over the past year. He was required to distribute it among the people he'd defrauded. My mother's share would be about $500. $500 out of $50,000. It was almost insulting. I called my mother to let her know. Well, it's better than nothing, she said pragmatically. And honestly, baby, I've made peace with that money being gone. I invested in Brandon because I believed in you, and I'd do it again. The real return on that investment was seeing you become the woman you are now. That's very generous of you, Mom. That's very realistic of me. Money comes and goes. But watching my daughter build an empire out of nothing? That's priceless. After we hung up, I thought about Brandon's $500. About how he was probably so proud of himself for saving that much, for making even a tiny dent in his debt. Good for him, I thought. He should be proud. It was probably the first honest thing he'd done in years. But it didn't affect me. His debts weren't my debts. His struggles weren't my struggles. His life wasn't my life. I was free. That weekend, Isaiah and I went to look at houses. We'd outgrown his loft and I'd outgrown my apartment. We wanted something that was ours, not his or mine but ours together. The realtor showed us a beautiful house in a quiet neighborhood, 4 bedrooms, a nice yard, close to both our offices. It was perfect. What do you think? Isaiah asked as we stood in the empty living room, imagining our furniture there. I think it feels like home. Then let's make an offer. We did, and it was accepted. We'd move in after the wedding. That night, lying in bed, Isaiah said, "Do you ever think about that night at the bus stop?" Sometimes. Why? Because if Brandon hadn't been such an idiot, we never would have met. You'd still be married to him, probably still miserable. It's strange how the worst moments can lead to the best outcomes. I don't think of it as Brandon being an idiot anymore. I think of it as the universe correcting itself. I wasn't supposed to be with him. I was supposed to be here doing this work with you. You really believe that? In fate? No. I believe in choices. Brandon made his choices, I made mine. The difference is I chose to get up from that bus stop and build something new. He chose to stay bitter and angry. Fate didn't do that. We did. Isaiah pulled me closer. Have I mentioned lately that you're the smartest person I know? Not in the last few hours. He laughed, and I felt content in a way I'd never felt with Brandon. This was what partnership was supposed to feel like. Easy. Comfortable. Equal. The next morning, I woke up to my phone buzzing with a text from Mrs. Wellington. Board meeting moved up to this afternoon. Something important has come up. When I got to the office, I found out that one of our competitors had made an offer to buy Wellington Industries. A substantial offer, nearly $1 billion. The board was split. Some members saw it as a perfect exit strategy. Others, including me, saw it as betraying everything Mrs. Wellington had built. We're not a company that's for sale, I said firmly at the meeting. Wellington Industries isn't just about profit. We have programs, commitments, people depending on us. Selling out to a corporation that only cares about the bottom line would destroy everything we've built. The debate was heated, but in the end, the board voted to reject the offer. We would remain independent. Mrs. Wellington pulled me aside afterward. "Thank you," she said, "for fighting for this company. For understanding what it really means. Of course, this isn't just a business. It's a legacy. Your legacy. I'm not going to let anyone take that away. It's your legacy too now, Natasha. Don't forget that." She was right. Wellington Industries wasn't just Mrs. Wellington's anymore. It was mine too. I'd earned that through hard work, dedication, and results. As I walked back to my office, I passed the photo wall in the hallway, pictures of every major project Wellington Industries had completed over the past 60 years. At the end of the wall was a new section, added just last month. Projects completed under my leadership. The Riverside Affordable Housing Development. The Women's Business Center downtown. The Community Center by the bus stop. 3 more projects currently under construction. My legacy. I smiled and kept walking. There was work to do and I was just getting started. 2 years after the bus stop, to the day, I stood at that same location for a ribbon-cutting ceremony. The community center was finally complete, and the neighborhood had turned out in force to celebrate. The building was beautiful. 3 stories of glass and stone, with spaces for job training, childcare, health services, and community meetings. On the front, in large letters, it read, Wellington Community Center, where second chances begin. We did it, Isaiah whispered beside me, squeezing my hand. We really did. The ceremony was packed with people whose lives had been changed by the center and the programs it would house. Jennifer Blake was there with her 2 kids, her bookkeeping business now thriving with 12 employees. 3 other women from the Second Chances program had started their own companies too. The foundation had given out over $5 million in loans and scholarships in the past year alone. Mrs. Wellington gave a short speech about community and opportunity. Then it was my turn. I stepped up to the microphone and looked out at all the faces, some I knew, some I didn't. People from the neighborhood, business leaders, city officials, reporters. My mother was there, beaming with pride. Isaiah stood with his parents, who'd flown in for the occasion. 2 years ago, I stood right here at this bus stop, thinking my life was over. I'd lost my marriage, my home, and my sense of who I was. I had no money, no phone, no plan. I thought I'd hit rock bottom. I paused, letting the words sink in. But I learned something that night. Rock bottom isn't the end. It's the beginning. Because when you have nothing left to lose, you're finally free to become who you were always meant to be. I told them about Mrs. Wellington finding me, about the job offer, about choosing to rebuild instead of retreat. I told them about the first time I presented to the board, terrified but determined. I told them about every small victory that led to bigger ones. This community center represents that same principle, I continued. It's a place where people can start over. Where they can learn new skills, find support, and build better futures. Because everyone deserves a second chance. Everyone deserves to be valued and supported. Everyone deserves to rise from the ashes of whatever knocked them down. The applause was thunderous. After I cut the ribbon and people filed inside to tour the facility, dozens of people came up to thank me, to share their own stories of starting over, to ask about the programs we offered. One woman, probably in her 50s, took my hand and said, "Thank you for not forgetting where you came from. Thank you for using your success to help others." I could never forget, I told her. That bus stop changed my life. Later, after the official events ended, I stood alone at the bus stop one more time. Isaiah was inside the center, talking to the construction team about some final details. Mrs. Wellington had gone home to rest. It was just me and the memories. I thought about the woman who'd stood here 2 years ago, crying in the rain. She'd been so broken, so lost. But she'd also been brave enough to get in a car with a stranger who offered help. Brave enough to accept a job she wasn't qualified for. Brave enough to start over. Thank you, I whispered to that version of myself, for not giving up. My phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. My heart jumped for a second, thinking it might be Brandon, but the message made me relax. "Hi, this is Amanda Peterson. I'm going through a divorce and heard about the Second Chances program. I used to be a lawyer but haven't worked in 7 years. I'm scared to start over, but I need help. Can you point me in the right direction?" I smiled and typed back, "Call this number tomorrow morning and ask for Patricia. Tell her Natasha sent you. We'll get you set up with an interview and training program. You've got this." Her response came immediately, "Thank you so much. You have no idea what this means to me." But I did know. I knew exactly what it meant. Isaiah came out of the community center and found me. "You okay?" "I'm perfect. Just thinking about how strange life is." "Strange good or strange bad?" "Strange good. 2 years ago, I would have told you my life was over. Now I'm CEO of a major company, engaged to an amazing man, running a foundation that helps women rebuild their lives. It's surreal. You earned every bit of it." "I know. That's the best part. I didn't get here because someone gave it to me or because I got lucky. I earned it." We walked back to the car and Isaiah drove us to dinner at our favorite restaurant. The same Italian place where we'd had our first date. The owner recognized us and gave us our usual table by the window. Over pasta, Isaiah said, "I have something to tell you." "Good something or bad something?" "Good something. I got an offer to design a major project downtown. A mixed-use development, offices, apartments, retail space. It would be the biggest project of my career." "Isaiah, that's amazing. Congratulations." "There's a catch. The developer wants Wellington Industries to partner on it. They specifically asked for you to oversee the residential component." I laughed. "So we'd be working together?" "Looks like it. Unless you think mixing business and personal life is a bad idea." "I think it's a great idea. We make a good team. The best team." After dinner we went back to our house, the one we'd bought together and moved into last month after the wedding. Small ceremony, just family and close friends, exactly like we'd planned. Mrs. Wellington had walked me down the aisle. My mother cried happy tears. It was perfect. The house was still full of unpacked boxes, but it was starting to feel like home. We'd painted the bedroom, set up Isaiah's home office, and hung pictures in the living room. I changed into comfortable clothes and found Isaiah on the couch, looking through architectural plans for his new project. "Can I show you something?" he asked. "Always." He pulled up designs on his laptop. "This is the residential tower. I designed it with flexibility in mind, some luxury units, some moderate income units, some affordable housing. I remembered what you said about mixed income developments being more sustainable. These are beautiful. How many units total?" 200. Split about evenly between the 3 income levels. The developers agreed to that? After I told them Wellington Industries wouldn't partner otherwise. "Turns out your reputation carries weight." I smiled. "Look at us. Changing the world one building at a time. That's exactly what we're doing." Later, lying in bed, I thought about everything that had led to this moment. The bad marriage, the betrayal, the bus stop, Mrs. Wellington, the hard work, the success, meeting Isaiah, all of it. "Do you ever wonder what Brandon's doing now?" Isaiah asked, as if reading my mind. "Not really." "Why?" "I was just thinking about how different your life would be if he hadn't been such an idiot." "I don't think about it that way anymore. I think about what I did with the opportunity that came from that situation. Brandon's choices were about him, not about me. My choices were about me." "Fair point. Do you forgive him?" I considered the question. "I don't think about him enough to forgive him or not forgive him. He's just not relevant to my life anymore. It's not even about forgiveness, it's about indifference." "That's probably the healthiest thing I've heard you say about him." "It's the truth. He's a stranger who used to be in my life. That's all." The next morning I went for my usual run around the neighborhood. It was a beautiful spring day and the streets were quiet. As I ran, I thought about where I'd been and where I was going. Wellington Industries was expanding into new markets. The foundation was opening chapters in 3 new cities. Isaiah and I were talking about starting a family in a year or 2. Mrs. Wellington was healthy and happy, enjoying her retirement while still offering guidance when needed. My mother had recovered financially and emotionally from Brandon's fraud. She'd even started dating someone new, a retired teacher who treated her like a queen. Everything was falling into place. When I got back home, Isaiah had made breakfast. Coffee, eggs, toast, simple but perfect. "I have a surprise for you," he said, handing me an envelope. Inside was a brochure for a resort in the Caribbean. "What's this?" "Our honeymoon. We never took one because you were too busy with work. I booked us a week in paradise, leaving next month. Patricia already cleared your schedule." "Isaiah, I can't just leave for a week. There's the new development project, the foundation board meeting, Natasha." He took my hands. "The company will survive without you for 1 week. You have an entire team of competent people who can handle things. You need a break. We need a break. Say yes." I looked at his hopeful face and realized he was right. I'd been working nonstop for 2 years, driven by the need to prove myself, to succeed, to justify Mrs. Wellington's faith in me. But I'd proven myself already. I was the CEO of a successful company. I ran a foundation that was changing lives. I'd built something real and lasting. I could take a week off. "Yes," I said. "Let's go to paradise." His smile was worth it. That afternoon, I was in the office when Mrs. Wellington stopped by. She did that occasionally, claiming she was bored at home but really just checking in to make sure everything was running smoothly. "I heard about the Caribbean trip," she said, settling into the chair across from my desk. "Is there anything Patricia doesn't tell you?" "Very little. And good for you. You need a vacation." "I feel guilty taking time off when there's so much to do." "Nonsense. The mark of a good leader is building a team that can function without you. If Wellington Industries falls apart in a week, then you haven't done your job properly. But I know you have, so stop worrying." "Yes, ma'am." She smiled. "You know, when I found you at that bus stop, I wasn't sure if my instinct was right. You looked so broken, so defeated. I wondered if you had the strength to rebuild. And you proved me right 1,000 times over. You're not just strong, Natasha. You're remarkable. You've taken everything I taught you and made it even better. Wellington Industries is more successful now than it was when I was running it. That's because I had an excellent teacher. No, it's because you're an excellent student. And more than that, you have something I never had, compassion. You understand people's pain because you've experienced it yourself. That makes you a better leader than I ever was. I don't know about that. I do. And I want you to know something. When I'm gone, whenever that is, I'll go knowing that everything I built is in the best possible hands. You're not just carrying on my legacy, Natasha. You're creating your own. I felt tears in my eyes. Thank you. For everything. For finding me that night, for taking a chance on me, for teaching me, for believing in me. Thank you for being worth the investment. She stood up slowly. Now, I'm going home before I get too sentimental. Go make more millions or help more women or whatever you're planning to do this afternoon. After she left, I sat in my office and looked out at the city. From here, I could see the Wellington Community Center in the distance, its glass facade catching the afternoon sun. I thought about Amanda Peterson, the woman who'd texted me yesterday, who would start her second chance soon. I thought about Jennifer Blake and all the other women building new lives. I thought about everyone who would come after them. And I thought about myself 2 years ago standing at a bus stop with nothing. That woman would be so proud of who I'd become. My phone buzzed. A text from Isaiah. Thinking about you. Love you. I smiled and texted back. Love you too. See you tonight. I had a meeting in 30 minutes, 3 contracts to review before the end of the day, and a conference call with the foundation's board of directors at 4. Tomorrow I'd visit a new development site and have lunch with a potential investor. But right now, in this moment, I was exactly where I was supposed to be. The woman Brandon left at a bus stop was gone. In her place was someone stronger, wiser, and infinitely more capable. Someone who knew her worth. Someone who'd built an empire from nothing. Someone who would never, ever let anyone make her feel small again. I smiled, turned back to my computer and got to work. There was a world to change and I was just getting started.